Hello, and welcome to another episode of PodcastDX, the show that brings you interviews with people just like you, whose lives were forever changed by a medical diagnosis.
I'm Lita. Ron will not be with us today.
And I'm Jean Marie.
Collectively, we're the hosts of PodcastDX.
On today's show, we're talking about beauty treatments with negative health effects. And first, we'll discuss the impact on clients who may be exposed occasionally, maybe every few weeks or every few months. And then we'll move on to discuss the prolonged exposure effects experienced by beauticians or hairstylists or cosmetologists working with these chemicals on a day-to-day basis.
That's right.
Okay.
Let's start by taking a look at the numbers.
Okay.
Each year, thousands of people experience side effects from hair care treatments, like keratin treatments, relaxers, hair dyes, chemical straighteners. Those are some of the biggest culprits. According to a study published in the International Journal of Trichology, up to 60% of users reported adverse reactions to hair dyes, including itching, rashes, and respiratory irritation.
And those numbers might be just the tip of the iceberg. Many mild cases go unreported. But for stylists, the cumulative effects can lead to chronic health issues. Constant exposures to chemicals like formaldehyde, parabens, ammonia, and phthalates, just to name a few things, have been associated with respiratory disorders, hormone disruption, or even an increased cancer risk.
And speaking of formaldehyde, that's a big one. It's often found in keratin treatments, even if the label doesn't explicitly say so. And when it's heated during the flat ironing process, it releases vapors that are toxic when inhaled. For stylists that are working in poorly ventilated salons, this repeated exposure becomes a serious health hazard.
And let's go over some of the signs and symptoms of an issue to watch for. If you're having respiratory issues, wheezing, coughing, or shortness of breath, skin reactions, for example, itching, rashes, or burns, eye irritation, headaches, dizziness, or nausea, or there are, potential long-term effects such as hormonal irregularities, reproductive health issues, or even, as we said before, potential for elevated cancer risk.
Well, there was a study in 2022,
okay,
and it was listed in the Journal of the National Cancer Institute, showing that frequent use of chemical hair straighteners was associated with a higher risk of uterine cancer.
Oh.
Women who use these products frequently were about 2.5 times more likely to develop the disease.
And diagnosing, these effects can be tricky. Symptoms like headaches and rashes can be mistaken for other healthcare conditions or other causes. And unless a healthcare provider knows to ask about chemical exposure, it can be challenging to diagnose or even try to figure out what's going on. Yeah, and it can also delay diagnoses.
Well, and aren't there other things that can cause,
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this leads to more complications over time. Chronic respiratory issues like asthma, chronic bronchitis, or even lung damage can develop. There have been cases where stylists had to leave the profession due to chemical sensitivities that they developed over time.
And as we said, hormone disruption is another major complication or potential complication, especially concerning reproductive health and chemicals, that can mimic estrogen and can interfere with your endocrine system. And there is some evidence linking frequent exposure to chemicals utilized in the, in the hair care and other mainly in hair care, to menstrual irregularities, fertility issues, and even certain types of, as we said, cancer.
So what about treatment? Well, once exposure-related symptoms appear, the first step is to eliminate the offending chemical. But for some, especially stylists who rely on their work for income, it's easier said than done. Symptomatic treatment includes corticosteroids for rashes, bronchodilators for respiratory systems, and sometimes antihistamines.
So mainly you want to look at prevention. And this could include proper ventilation during treatments, wearing personal protective equipment, gloves, masks, switching to safer, non-toxic product lines, and limiting frequency of exposure for both the clients and those that are working in the industry.
Right. The FDA and OSHA have both issued guidelines for salons. For example, OSHA recommends local exhaust ventilation and discourages the use of high formaldehyde products.
And let's not forget about informed decision making. Clients should ask about the ingredients before agreeing to a treatment. And there's been a recent move to making sure that the ingredients are listed on the products, because that has not always been the case. And just because something is labeled as natural does not mean safe. Formaldehyde is natural, but it's not necessarily safe.
Right. In addition to hair care, we should also talk about nail treatments, which are another source of chronic chemical exposure in salons. Acrylic nails, gel polishes, and nail glue often contain substances like toluene. Thank you. Like toluene, formaldehyde, and dibutyl phthalate, DBP. They're all known to be hazardous.
And prolonged exposure to these chemicals can lead to symptoms similar to what we had mentioned before: headaches, dizziness, skin and eye irritation, and respiratory issues. And some compounds are classified as endocrine disruptors, while others, like toluene, are linked to developmental harm if you happen to be pregnant.
So even the nail care stuff, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Same
well,
symptoms.
Anything with related to beauty, it hasn't always been the case where we know what's in a product or what its effects might be.
All right. Nail technicians who work without adequate ventilation or protective equipment face risks of chronic bronchitis, allergic contact dermatitis, and even reproductive health effects. A study from the CDC highlighted that nail salon workers, especially women of childbearing age, had significantly higher incidence of adverse pregnancy outcomes.
And let's not forget about, the people that are going in for these treatments. Routine exposure to nail treatments can carry risks as well. Frequent manicures can lead to cuticle damage, nail fold infection, follicular infections, allergic contact dermatitis as well. You could, if proper sanitation and techniques are, being
applied. Okay.
You could end up with warts from, that's in bacterial infections, viral infections, and even fungal infections. So you have to make sure that, wherever you are going, that they are following proper sanitation protocols.
Okay. And the UV light that's used to cure nail gels, that's another concern.
Yeah.
Prolonged or repeated exposure to UVA rays may contribute to premature aging, sunspots, and in rare cases, increase the risk of skin cancer on the hands and fingers. Clients should consider applying a broad-spectrum sunscreen before UV curing or opt for LED alternatives when possible.
And just like with hair care, prevention here is key. Using safer alternatives, adequate salon ventilation, gloves, masks, limiting exposure is always essential. And then you also want to make sure that, you're following sanitation protocols and making sure that that's all being taken care of. And clients can also play a part by researching their nail products and asking salons about their safety protocols.
Okay. Well, looking forward to the future, we hope to see more regulations, better labeling, and a shift toward safer alternatives. The beauty industry is slowly evolving, with more brands developing formaldehyde-free keratin treatments, plant-based dyes, and 3-free or 5-free nail polishes that avoid the most harmful ingredients.
And it's a long road. I mean, beauty care has always had some risks involved, and salon workers deserve protection, and clients deserve transparency.
Right. We encourage our listeners to read the studies listed in our show notes and to take action to protect their health, whether it's you, your stylist, or whoever's in the seat.
Mm-hmm. And always keep in mind that this podcast is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment, and always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified healthcare provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition or treatment before undertaking your healthcare regime. And never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you've heard on this podcast.
The views and opinions of the guests and hosts on this show do not necessarily reflect the views of PodcastDX LLC.
And as always, thank you for joining us. Stay safe, stay healthy, and hey, for your hair, maybe stay natural.